Congratulations! Your video entry to the drinking contest was selected to be the grand prize winner of 2 round-trip plane tickets to Hong Kong. The judges were so moved by your father's entry, and we want to congratulate you. By a show of hands, how many of you have actually encountered this kind of message? Thank you. And by a show of hands, how many of you have actually thought it credible and clicked into it? Be honest. Okay. So, what if I were to tell you that I'm standing here before you today as a result of winning an online contest? And what if I were to tell you that I am just a regular person with my own hopes and dreams, hurts and losses, that I studied English as an undergrad, and then later pursued an education further in funeral services. And that's me on my dad's shoulder. What if I told you that I am from the city of Toronto, Canada, and that I am a creative and intelligent person, and evidently very handsome. And hello there, my name is Ryan, and welcome to my TEDx talk on navigating through change. So in September of 2017, that's when I received the email from one of the well-known soy drink companies of Hong Kong. I had submitted my video entry of it, and it was selected to be the grand prize winner. That's my dad there. And we all have to go through changes, and so just the other day, last Tuesday, I had an appointment with a promising date. However, it was rescheduled. And so after work, I had to scroll through Instagram, and then I found a restaurant that offered Wagyu beef and omu rice. But I couldn't find the restaurant. And then instead, I walked into a Shanghainese restaurant with this view. And I love xiulongbao. Okay. And then isn't that how we often find life to be? We can plan all we want, setting goals and thinking we know where we want to head in life. And actually, things don't go as planned. And what do we do when plans don't go as planned? What do we do when changes come? And where do you turn to for that anchor of peace and stability in your life? I'd like us to consider 3 things, and shall we read it together? Number 1, delight. Number 2, community. Number 3, pray. So I'd like to share with you a story of a time when my peace and stability was shaken at its very core. Bringing you back to when I was in grade 2. So every week I would visit the principal's office because of my bad behavior. And every day the teacher would write in my agenda to report about my performance. If it was a good day, the teacher would write, "Ryan was good today." If it was a bad day, Ryan didn't listen. And if it was a bad day, in the words of the famous comedian Russell Peters, somebody gonna get hurt real bad. Somebody. Growing up in my household, forms of abuse is not unheard of. And there was one day that I decided in school to create a craft. I drew Pokemon Pokeballs, and I stuck them on my shoulders as if they were epaulets, and I also made some for my friends as well. And then I thought it was really cool. However, for the teacher, not so much. The teacher decided to take the Pokeball and then stick it onto the agenda and wrote a note into it. That was clearly not a good day. I also joined a local martial arts club and obtained the status of black belt. However, although I was vengeful, my faith taught me a different way. It taught me about forgiveness and reconciliation. And this is the model. Okay, so I'd like us to think about the word delight, which is the first point. So delight. When we think about the word delight, some words that come to mind would be amusement, gratification, happiness, captivate. Phrases like give praise to, or to take delight in, or take pleasure in. Words like joy, love, and happiness. Okay? Happiness. Is your happiness dependent on something that you can lose? What do you find your delight in? And I think it makes sense that we give praise to the things that we delight. C.S. Lewis is a writer and author who, on the topic of praise, once said, "The most obvious fact about praise, whether about God or anything else, strangely escaped me." He said, "I thought of it in terms of compliment, approval, or giving of honor. Praise almost seems to be inner health made audible. I had not noticed either that just as men spontaneously praise whatever they value, so they spontaneously urge us to join them in praising it. Isn't she lovely? Wasn't it glorious? Don't you think that magnificent?" The psalmists, in telling everyone to praise God, are doing what all men do when they speak of what they care about. Praise almost seems to be inner health made audible. Question: how is your inner health? Have you listened? 2018, 2019 was probably one of the hardest years in my life, and it can be summarized in one word: loss. Loss of my first job in Hong Kong, the loss of a friendship, or what I thought was a friendship, the loss of my grandmother in her sleep. But it was also one of the most memorable years of my life. Because of winning the tickets and coming to Hong Kong, I was able to spend the last 10 months of my grandmother's life with her before she passed. 2019 to 2020, I also would hear a lot of people say, "Press on." And so I did, with no easy breaths. I tried to focus and do the next right thing. With family issues in the background and huge financial debt on my shoulders, and as well as trying to take care of myself in Hong Kong and taking care of expenses as well, I reached a point where I felt like I reached rock bottom. And I prayed that my life would end. And thank God that I didn't. If I had executed or carried out on those negative thoughts, I would not have been able to tell you today that the huge financial debt that was supposed to take about 9 years to clear has now been paid off in 3 years. I would also not be able to tell you that I learned from this that suicide is only a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I would also not be able to tell you that I also went through many different jobs and changes in the past 5 years since 2017. I've gone through 4 part-time jobs and 3 full-time jobs as well. I would not be able to tell you that I am standing here before you today at the completion of the postgraduate diploma program at this very university as well. And I would also not be able to take this opportunity to tell you that your life is worth living and your life has value as well. Your life matters. So an ancient philosopher by the name of the Apostle Paul says, "We rejoice in sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character. Character, hope." And in the words of Sam from The Lord of the Rings, when the ring was finally destroyed and Sam wakes up and he's surprised that he's alive. He's surprised that he sees Gandalf and he says, "Is everything sad going to come untrue?" So as an English major, this sentence is not even grammatically correct. However, yes, I do trust that one day everything sad is going to come untrue. Which leads me to my second and third points: community and pray. I would encourage everyone to find that community of yours that will truly know and love you, and as well pray for and pray with you. And then going to the story that I want to share as well as to how I got into the postgraduate diploma program at this university. And here are the entrance requirements for the following year. Note that the second point under 2-year part-time says you need to be a serving teacher in an early childhood setting. And so this was the timeline, February to June 2021. Number one, these are the changes that I've gone through. So number one, the program application deadline was actually Christmas 2020. Number two, one of the requirements was a 1-year working experience in a school setting as a serving teacher. Number three, you needed a principal's recommendation letter in order to be considered. At the same time, my dad experienced a major stroke. Number four, there was a discrepancy between my identity and proof of that. And then number five, I didn't know what was the next step. Would I have a job in June, like after June? So number one, the deadline for the program was actually Christmas of 2020. However, when I submitted, so there was a couple from my community that encouraged me to apply, even though it was February of 2021. And so my experience of university deadlines is that there was no bargaining. Number two, the 1-year working experience as a serving teacher. I also did not have this, as my previous job was working in customer service. So number three, a principal's recommendation letter was needed. So number two was already not fulfilled. How can I find a principal, let alone have them write a recommendation for me to apply for this program? And then later on, the principal, a school took me on, and then the principal wrote a letter for me on the second day of my work. And then at the same time, my dad suffered a stroke. And questions like, do I stay in Hong Kong? Do I leave everything that I've been working towards and then just go back to be with my dad? He had experienced a major stroke, and his artery was clogged completely. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with my sister, and she said, because Dad is a Christian, and if he dies, then we will see him again in heaven. And I clung on to those words, and because of that, I continued to keep trying in Hong Kong. Number four came the discrepancy between my university certificate, the name on it, and my Hong Kong ID. What happened was, so this is one of the emails, is that the admission sent me an email, and they were like, okay, we noted that your certificate says Ryan Yao Kin Lam. However, your Hong Kong ID says something different. It says Ryan Lam. Which one are you? So please be advised, if you change your name, you need the proper documentation to prove your identity. The next day, they sent another email, and they said, you need a deed poll. I don't know what that was, so I searched Google, and some of the words that popped up were legal, lawyer, and keeping that in mind with finances at home that I had to take care of. When I saw that deed poll, I was already thinking I need to give up. I don't think I can pass this change, this hurdle. And so I spoke to the principal and I asked them, well, what can I do? What are some advice or tips that I can try to keep going? And then the principal asked me to try and find as many proof of address with both names in it and then submit it to the university. And so I tried to collect it and try to formulate in my mind, okay, what is this? This is the driving license in Canada, and this is the health card in Canada. This is my bank statement from Canada with both names, Yao Kin Lam, Ryan Lam. And then that day after work, the next 2 days after work, before I sent the email, came the offer of acknowledgement. Congratulations, we're pleased to offer you admissions into the early childhood program. This is also a letter. This is the official letter of acceptance into the program. So mind you, I didn't fulfill most of those requirements, the 5 changes or 5 hurdles there mentioned earlier. Was there a job after June? Yes, there was. The school actually offered me 2 contracts. The first one was to cover the first April to June, and then the second contract covered until the end of the next year. And then here are the check marks of proving that I have successfully completed my studies in the PGDE ECE program at this very university. And this was all a result of all of these changes and the support that I had from my community as well. So where do you turn to for that anchor of peace and stability? Consider, delight, community, and pray. Thank you.